welcome back to the channel. So relational operators generate a Boolean result. They evaluate the relationship between the values of the operands. As you can see here, we have operand 1 and operand 2, and we have a relational operator in between. So if the relationship is true, we will get true. If it's not, we will get false. So we have a couple of operators here. We have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, equivalent to, and not equivalent to. So equivalence and non-equivalence work with all primitives. However, the rest of the comparisons, the first four, they will not work with the type of Boolean. That's because Boolean values can only be true or false, right? So if you say true is greater than false or less than, like, that doesn't make sense, right? So we'll see now examples of using relational operators. So we'll use system out println to print the value in the console. So here we have 10 less than 20. If we run the program, we'll get true. Now let's change this to a char, for example A. If we run this, we'll get false because A is equal to 97 in the ASCII table, which you should go check out if you don't know what that is. If we do is equivalent to 97, now we'll get true. Now let's try using Boolean values. For example, false is greater than true. This won't work, of course, it doesn't make sense. We get this error in the console as well. But remember what I said, we can use the last two relational operators in the previous chart. For example, is equivalent to, this will work, and we'll get false because they're not the same. But if I change this to, for example, false, we'll get true. Now, let's see, do you think this would work? Yeah, it won't, because 10 is less than 20, so we get true here. Is true less than 30, which doesn't make sense. However, what if we compared objects? For example, ABC greater than A. Do you think this would work? No, that's because the first four relational operators in the previous table can only be used with primitives. So what do we do then? That's when we use the last two operators, the equivalent to and non-equivalent to. So they can be used with Boolean values and with objects. Here we'll see more in detail right here. So the relational operators, equivalent and not equivalent, work with all objects, but their meaning often confuses the first-time Java programmer, as you'll see right now. So here we created two objects, n1 and n2. They're both integers and have the same value of 47. And then we checked whether n1 is equivalent to n2 and whether n1 is not equivalent to n2. So you might think that first we'll get true and then false because they have the same value of 47, right? But let's see whether that is correct. If we run the program, we see that it's not correct because we get false and then true. And that's because that while the contents of the objects are the same, the references are not the same. The operators compare object references. Yeah, so if you want to compare the actual contents of an object for equivalence, then you have to use a special method equals, which we'll see in this new program. So here we also have the same two integers created, and then we use the equals method right here, n1 equals n2. If we run it, we will get true. However, it's not that simple if you create your own class, which you'll see in this new example. Here we created a value class with an integer I, and in the public static void method of this class, we created two objects of that value class, and we set the I for both objects to 100. So both objects have the same value of 100. So if we do v1 equals v2, we expect it to be true, right? Just like our previous example. But if we run it, we'll get false. And this is because the default behavior of equals is to compare references. So unless you override equals in your new class, you won't get the desired behavior. So later I'll make a video explaining how to override the equals method, but you should just be aware of the way equals works for now. So if you're wondering why the previous example worked, that's because most of the Java library classes implement equals so that it compares the contents of objects instead of the references. And that's why the previous example worked, because the integer class overrides the equals method so that it compares the contents. So I hope you understood everything, and thank you for watching. Bye, guys.